coronavirus pandemic. As Governor Holcomb issues a stay-at-home order, Indiana businesses react. Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger is here for an in-depth discussion on what it all means and what's next for jobs and economic development in the state. Plus, from GM and Vintech, fast-tracking efforts to build ventilators at a Kokomo GM plant, to companies pivoting to produce and distribute masks and gowns. We'll take a look at Hoosier businesses stepping up to help in a crisis. Plus,
a really exciting time for me to be able to come into my team and say, hey, we have this opportunity. Because I promise you, there's a lot of uncertainty here.
We will tell you how a Bloomington-based bakery is helping a large grocery chain keep its shelves stocked. And exclusive details about the state of IoT in Indiana. We're getting the very first look at the second report released by the Indiana IoT Lab in Fishers with details on major progress and what it means for the state. We'll take you to Fishers for the very latest. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. The first coronavirus case in Indiana was reported March 6. Since then, certainly much has changed within our borders. Indiana this week joining a growing number of states ordering residents to remain in their homes, a stay-at-home order, to help slow the spread of the virus that causes COVID-19. In an address to the state this week, Governor Eric Holcomb calling on Hoosiers to hunker down, stay at home, except for work or for permitted activities such as taking care of others, obtaining necessary supplies, and for health and safety. The order, of course, has major implications for Indiana business, large and small, and for economic development and jobs in Indiana, which had been on a record-breaking roll. For more on the impact, what's next as well, and what Hoosier businesses and residents might expect in the coming weeks, pleased to be joined now by Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger. Jim is in our social media lounge as we continue to adhere to social distancing and take every precaution as we continue to bring you the very latest on the pandemic and its impact. Jim, welcome to the program.
Always good to be with you, Gary.
Jim, first of all, I want to talk about the business impact, but I know you had a news conference this week, and you talked at length about how Indiana businesses, large and small, around the state have stepped up to really help in the crisis.
Yes, it's always amazing to me whenever we're at our worst, in our worst times, and throughout the country, in the world actually, but when we're at our worst times, people are at their best, and certainly the Hoosier businesses all around the state, small and large, have stepped up. We've been in touch with over 12,000 of them. We're speaking industry specifically on a weekly basis, whether that be aerospace and defense, agro-biosciences, advanced manufacturing, logistics, life sciences, IT, and so many more across the board, big businesses, small businesses, 200 people on a given phone call. And to a person, when we open it up and we want to hear about what's going on in their world and what we might be able to do to help, and then we ask what they might be able to assist, everybody steps up and wants to help in some way, shape, or form.
What are you hearing from Indiana business, Jim? I know you have a hotline that's set up. You've heard from a lot of businesses. What are they saying? What does Indiana business want to help get through this crisis?
Well, I think the uncertainty is really the key. Even in back when we were focusing on trade barriers and things like that, the most important thing is about the uncertainty, because Indiana's always been a stable environment, a predictable business environment. We were really set for this. When you think about the fact that we have been so fiscally prudent over the years, over the past 15 years, where we have a AAA credit rating, we have a balanced budget, over $2 billion in cash reserves. We knew this rainy day would come, and it's here. And so we were ready to take this on, and business have stepped up. I just think it's the uncertainty of the duration. And no one can quite predict that, so it's a day-by-day thing for all of us. But I can tell you, business has a little bit longer of a time span than we say in a health, because health is obviously number one. and the health of our Hoosiers is the governor's and the lieutenant governor's top priority. But businesses continue, they have a longer window and they have a longer vision, and they know this too shall pass. And so we've been fortunate. We had such a good 2019, record-setting years the last 3 years. And going into 2020, we're way ahead of our job commitments for this year and our CapEx. Unfortunately, that's in the it's in the short term, or that'll be longer term, and we just have to deal with this short term as we speak.
Yeah, and that one of the elements there, Indiana's been on a roll for the last several years in economic development. But we were talking off camera. Actually, you got a deal done. I know you can't give a lot of specifics, but you got a deal done this week or here recently that could be very positive for the state.
Yeah, we have over 8,327 jobs that have been committed this year since January 1st, 75 different projects and $1.2 billion in CapEx. And the one that we signed just this week, Monday, is a company that's very established in the telemedicine market, which couldn't be a more perfect time. We wish they were here now. They're headquartered out of Canada, and we'll be reviewing that with our board at our next meeting. Then we'll be able to make that company public knowledge.
Okay, we'll talk more about that in the second half of our show with you. But final question for you, Jim, as we look going forward, no one knows what's going to happen next for sure, certainly. But what for Hoosier businesses, is there a message out there that you have, or the governor has, the state has, for Indiana business?
I think follow the executive order. The executive order to stay at home, I think, gets misconstrued. Semantics, as you know, is the ultimate communicator in our state from a business standpoint. It was not a shelter-in-place order. It was a stay-at-home order. And if a lot of businesses are asking me, is their business essential? We have a lot of people calling us at IDC on our helpline saying, I don't think our business is essential, but I'm being made to come to work. And if you go to the executive order and you look under item number 14, there's A to X, and it tells you exactly what those businesses are that are important at this point in time. And that follows consistently with the federal government's CISA requirements of what is an essential business. So I think that the executive order was not meant to isolate people necessarily, just maintain this social distance, because that's what's proven to be successful in countries like South Korea. And so our businesses have to keep doing what they do, but at the same point in time, try to respect that, because it's the only way we'll be successful against the virus.
All right, Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger, as always, thank you for joining us. You're going to be back in the second half hour of the show with a little more in-depth discussion on economic development. Jim, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. Coming up next, we check in with Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta for more on Hoosier businesses who are helping during this coronavirus crisis. And as we told you earlier, there are many resources out there to help Hoosiers who are out of a job or anxious over losing work. We showed you the state hotline just a few minutes ago. Here's another resource for you. Check it out. Well, perhaps one of the most striking developments from the coronavirus outbreak has been how companies in Indiana, all over the state, have stepped up, pivoted away from their normal business models to completely new operations. Automakers shifting to manufacturing ventilators, high-tech communications companies delivering much-needed supplies to healthcare workers, many other examples as well. Our Business of Health reporter, Kylie Valletta, is in Greenwood via Skype right now. She joins us now with more on how Hoosier businesses are doing their part. Kylie.
That's right, Gary. It is a all-hands-on-deck approach to help healthcare workers protect themselves and to help the virus from spreading. For example, General Motors and medical equipment maker Ventec are speeding up efforts to build ventilators at the GM plant in Kokomo. GM says it has arranged for the supply of 95% of the parts it needs to start production. Reuters is reporting sources familiar with the plans say the goal is to build up to 200,000 ventilators, with production beginning within the next 2 to 3 weeks. In Indianapolis, NextView is shifting its resources from providing video-enhanced communications products to shipping FDA-certified N95 mask supplies to healthcare workers around the country. NextView operates a healthcare factory in China and plans on sending more than 1 million units to the U.S. The company says the masks will be limited to healthcare facilities and will be on a first-come, first-served basis. Parkview Health in Fort Wayne is getting help from businesses and volunteers to make sure they don't have a shortage of personal protective equipment. Parkview is working with hospital laundry services to make cloth masks, which could be used as backups to their main supply. The masks will include nose pieces that were donated and fabricated by Ray Magnet Wire in Fort Wayne and Schlemmer Brothers Metal Fabrication in Wabash. Community volunteers are also making new sheet masks, which could be used for patients and visitors. And in Maryville, Tradewinds Services is responding to the crisis by ramping up production of disposable masks and gowns. The nonprofit provides services for children and adults with physical and mental disabilities through vocational training. Tradewinds clients are now creating gowns and masks for hospitals, fire departments, and police stations in Lake and Porter counties. The goal is to make 30,000 to 50,000 items per month. And as we reported last week, Eli Lilly started its drive-through COVID testing for healthcare workers this week and very recently expanded it also to first responders. Gary, back to you.
Really great to see, Kylie. Great report. Thanks very much. Kylie Valletta in Greenwood via Skype this week. Well, coming up, the silver lining the pandemic has created among Indiana businesses. Around Indiana, reporter Mary Rachel Redmond hit the road to Bloomington, where Scholars Inn is helping stock Indiana grocery store shelves with its baked goods. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Walmart says because of the coronavirus pandemic and heavy demand at stores, plans to hire 2,000 Hoosiers by the end of May to work in stores, clubs, and distribution and fulfillment centers. Also, Walmart giving bonuses of $300 for full-time hourly associates, $150 for part-timers. Also intends to accelerate the timeline for its quarterly bonus schedule. In Northwest Indiana, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced the South Shore Commuter Rail Line to implement modifications to its schedule due to a substantial drop in daily ridership. The Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District now running a weekday schedule like its lighter weekend holiday schedule, but with the addition of 2 rush hour trains. Fort Wayne-based Vera Bradley has closed all full line and factory stores as a result of the pandemic. The company has also postponed that very popular annual outlet sale, which is typically held in April in Fort Wayne. The temporary closures set to run through April 2. Vera Bradley says all store associates will be compensated through that date and that online operations continue. And for thousands of middle and high school students struggling with math or science homework, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology has extended its free tutoring helpline. Rose says its popular homework hotline is now available through the Ask Rose program from noon until 3 p.m. You can call, email, or use a chat session. Services are also available during normal service times, Sunday through Thursday from 7 to 10 p.m. To learn how to connect with a tutor, go to our website, InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Well, as the response to coronavirus has caused panic buying among consumers, Kroger has turned to one of its many Hoosier partners to help stock shelves. Inside Indiana Business reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has details.
That way we scale like it. Somebody got a farm.
Milk and bread and eggs and toilet tissue, those are all on the list. They couldn't keep bread on the shelf. So it's just a supply thing.
And with bread flying off the shelves at grocery stores around the state, Bloomington-based Scholars Inn Bakehouse found itself in a unique position to boost its supply in Kroger.
They knew they had a problem with bread supply. And what was really cool, what they did, is they started looking for local solutions in their communities. Not looking to Aunt Millie's or Wonder or someone like that, looking for local opportunities. And we were blessed enough for them to reach out to us. And I'm like, heck yeah. They're like, can you ramp up production? I'm like, yeah, we can ramp up production. We'll do this.
And in the last 2 weeks, Scholars Inn production at Kroger is up 400%.
Used to at Kroger, we measured the number of loaves we sent to the stores by the hundreds. 800, 900 loaves. Well, now we measure them in the thousands. 3,500, 4,000 loaves will produce this week for Kroger.
And Bruce and his founding partners are going without a paycheck to retain their staff of 25.
We understand the importance of working through this so that when it comes back, we're fighting ready, man. We're going to attack. So does that mean that short term that we can make some sacrifices? Absolutely. It's critical.
Bruce's words of wisdom for small businesses out there during this time of uncertainty.
To stress the importance to all those operators out there, and I know we're in a unique situation when it comes to food business because we have 25 employees. That's very easy to manage, but just do your absolute level best to keep your team in place as much as you can. When I look out here every day prior to this, I'm like, I need them more than they need me. Because in the market that we were in, these folks could work anywhere they wanted. They didn't have to be here, they chose to be here. And I felt so incredibly blessed by that. Now, they kind of need me more than I need them. So my chance now is to show my true appreciation by just trying to work through this and keep them here.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Well, a milestone for the Indiana IoT Lab in Fishers, one of the first of its kind in the nation. Coming up next, we take you to Fishers to check in with founder and CEO John Wexler, who has some exclusive details on the 2020 edition of the State of IoT Report. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegion, pioneering safety. Well, it's estimated that in 5 years, the Internet of Things, IoT, could have an $11 trillion impact on the U.S. economy. And there is a real feeling that Indiana, a state that makes things, moves things, and grows things, can grab a big share of that very lucrative sector. Fishers is home to the state's first IoT lab, one of the first of its kind in the nation. That lab marking an anniversary with the release of a State of IoT report. Let's go now to Fishers and check in with IoT Lab founder John Wexler. John, in your view, what is the current state of IoT in Indiana?
Well, Gary, first of all, I think it's a very exciting time for IoT and makers and the industry in Indiana. We have seen an expansion of this tech ecosystem and a recognition. When we started, there was a focus on this make, move, and grow phenomenon of leveraging our traditional strengths in industry here in Indiana. And, we're continuing to see the entrepreneurs, the innovators, and the tech folks pivot into supporting these industries, especially as you look at the new normal that we are all beginning to experience here. We're starting to see opportunity really unfold here. And as we develop this ecosystem, more companies will emerge and more opportunities will present themselves. And I think it presents a great opportunity for the state of Indiana.
John, you're releasing a State of IoT report in the week ahead. You'll detail increased engagement, 4,000 plus visitors from around the globe. Is the IoT Lab meeting expectations?
Absolutely. I talked about this make, move, grow phenomenon. We shifted our focus really into this design, connect, and deploy model where we engage with the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the customers, the corporate innovators. And quite frankly, we've looked internally for startup opportunities as well. And so when you talk about 4,000 people coming through our doors in the last year, that is an increase, a dramatic increase, almost 35% increase over the first year, which was a pretty big year for us. And so we are finding new ways to connect with our community and to meet the needs of industry using this ever continuing to grow model of Internet of Things and how we're going to change the world here in the future. So yeah, lots of opportunity. We're very excited.
John, the IoT Lab was really a groundbreaking development. Give us an idea of the kinds of companies, really kind of the vibe. What's the vibe at the IoT Lab in Fishers?
Well, so we have everything from, as mentioned, the corporate innovators. So larger companies like Roche Diagnostics actually has an outpost there. We have InDesign, which is an accomplished designer of IoT-related products. And then you have your more entrepreneurial companies like Cumulex, Flexware. We have a company called Perceive that is working on spatial analytics, a space that up until, maybe even a couple of weeks ago, the average person wouldn't give much thought to. But they build 3D models using specialized cameras to look at how people are interacting in a given physical space. that matters to retailers on how they lay out their stores and how their clerks and salespeople might interact with someone. But even more and more, it has a lot to do with physical safety and situations like we're in today, where social distance is now a phenomenon. And so I think that this is going to present a lot of opportunity for the companies that are based at the IoT Lab. And we're really excited about watching them continue in 2020 and beyond.
John, looking forward, what do you see as the opportunity for Indiana, especially statewide? What's the statewide opportunity with IoT?
I definitely believe, first of all, this is a statewide opportunity. I think entrepreneurship and innovation in particular, and IoT as a niche within that opportunity set, really provides the opportunity for entrepreneurs to innovate where they are, right? So, from the beginning of this Launch Fishers and IoT adventure, we've always talked about the 2 kids in Lagodi, Indiana that are going to change the world, or, a couple of kids in a garage in Kokomo. I think the more we can invest in this environment to make entrepreneurship and innovation flourish, we give those that next generation an opportunity to innovate in place. And IoT in particular creates an opportunity for someone to buy a Raspberry Pi for $25, get an Arduino for another 10 or $20, and begin to integrate that into the real world. So when you look at our strengths in manufacturing, agriculture, and distribution, we have domain expertise that exists throughout the state, and leveraging that heritage, right, with the new opportunities presented by this technology, we really have an opportunity to create products that could change the world. And that's what's most exciting to us.
John Wexler, the founder of the IoT Lab in Fishers, joining us from Fishers. John, thanks for joining us. Well, also this week, making news around Indiana. Despite economic uncertainty, Indianapolis-based digital marketing consultancy Lev is set to be acquired by a New Jersey company. Cognizant Technology Solutions says that move will further expand its Salesforce practice. Lev helps businesses modernize their marketing campaigns using Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Cognizant did not say whether any jobs would be affected by the deal. Last year, Lev announced it was relocating its headquarters from Arizona to Indianapolis with plans to add about 80 jobs. Well, coming up, the toll the crisis is taking on the Indiana economy. How much damage has been done? How long might it take to bounce back? Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger returns for a conversation. Stay with us. Well, the coronavirus pandemic is impacting virtually every segment of the Indiana economy, some more than others. Take the convention and tourism business. It is a huge segment of the Indiana economy. 83,000 people depend on the sector for a paycheck in central Indiana alone. This week, I caught up with Visit Indy Senior Vice President Chris Gall outside the empty and closed Indiana Convention Center on a deserted Capitol Avenue for perspective on the impact. And he tells me, despite this crisis, there may be some positive news on the horizon.
In any given year, we'd welcome more than 30 million visitors to the capital city. Any given year, we have 83,000 men and women who depend on tourism for a paycheck. Globally, this COVID-19 crisis is impacting tourism first and foremost by conventions coming to a screeching halt, mass gatherings subsiding and being paused, hotels closing, restaurants closing, museums closing. And so tourism is really at the epicenter of this crisis, and we're feeling that. You're seeing that with hospitality workers no longer earning paychecks. You're seeing that with hotels starting to close. This is a time where we would be getting ready to enjoy the fruits of a Sweet 16 Elite 8 game. This is a time when our convention center would be packed with and teeming with activity. Our hotels would normally be in the 80% occupancy. We're in the 3 to 4% occupancy. And so it's real and clear that COVID-19 has a tangible impact on tourism here in Indianapolis.
So Chris, really, you began tracking this in early March. Talk about that process and what it was like.
We started first hearing from meeting planners in early March, really March 1st, with concern. This was starting to grow nationwide, certainly globally. How is Indianapolis faring? What is the state doing? What preventative measures? Should we be looking to postpone and or cancel our convention? That uptick has been so sizable over the last couple of weeks, where we moved from reassuring our customers that we were safe and sound to not being able to welcome them. And we understand that. We understand that first and foremost, we need to keep the 83,000 men and women in our hospitality industry safe and healthy. We need to keep our visitors healthy. With the Indiana Convention Center closing its doors and having mandates to keep people safe and healthy, by virtue of that, meetings aren't occurring. They're happening virtually, but they're not occurring. And so since March 1st, we've seen this crescendoing concern, where now Visit Indy is working with a sense of urgency to take groups and meetings and events that were slated for March, April, May, and move them further in the year. Perfect example of that is our Fire Department Instructors Conference, FDIC International. Major international delegation, comes every year. They've come here for more than 30 years. We're working very actively. Where can we place them further in the year? Where can we find room inside the convention center, room within our hotels, and far enough in the year that they can safely convene here?
What is that like? That has to be an incredible challenge to try to fit the pieces, moving pieces here and there to accommodate these events.
When your hotels are normally 70+% occupancy, when your convention center is normally 65% occupancy, it's like playing Tetris. Where can you find room for a group like FDIC to be scooted further in the year, to not step on any toes of other existing business, while also finding physical space? That's a logistical feat in it itself. Now you take the other conventions and meetings that maybe aren't as big, but still utilize portions of the convention center and hotels downtown and otherwise, and you try to scoot them further into the year, while other major cities are looking to do the same. So it's very competitive. This rebooking and postponement business from a convention standpoint is become logistically our concentration and our focus singularly. How do we keep Indianapolis healthy when this crisis ends? How do we keep Indianapolis healthy from a tourism standpoint? By scooting business later in the year and salvaging as many conventions as possible that we were supposed to be hosting as a capital city.
Chris, having said that, challenging times now, are you seeing any indication of light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, in terms of conventions and events beginning to maybe look to get back into the market?
Sure, so this crescendoing buzz of postponement and cancellation, there is a bit of light and a bit of research that shows there's light moving into June and July. There's a nationwide study done on the appetite of convention meeting planners. When do they foresee looking to postpone and move and start meeting again? And it looks like June and July. Now there's a lot of caveats, what states are doing, what the government will say is what we're able to do and how we're able to convene, but that research came in this week that meeting planners across the nation are really looking June and July. So with that, that marries well with what we're hearing from the convention and meeting decision makers we're contacting proactively, saying, hey, you're supposed to be meeting in May, supposed to be meeting in March, April, May, June, July. How can we postpone you? Where can we move you? When can we move you? And that matches well with the data we're seeing as we pick up the phone and work with a sense of urgency to move these conventions in the spring, into the summer, into the fall, and dare we say into the winter.
I got to imagine another frustrating piece of this is that 2020, your projections, I think, were for a pretty good year this year, right?
Really, 2020, as the city set to start celebrating the bicentennial, a lot of progress, a lot of momentum coming into January and February. Our February hotel numbers were very strong. As you turn the page to March, you see this immediate decline. The Big Ten men's and women's basketball, while playing on the court, ceasing because of restrictions, rightfully so. So, the second quarter of 2020 will be painful from a tourism perspective. It will be painful for our community as a whole. The question is, can we salvage into the third and fourth quarter?
Well, certainly another important industry in Indiana starting to feel the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. RV manufacturer Thor Industries, headquartered in Elkhart. Also, Iowa-based Winnebago Industries announcing plans to suspend operations nationwide. That includes several Indiana facilities. Thor CEO Bob Martin says it is the company temporarily shutting down production at all facilities in North America, as well as a substantial portion of European production. Winnebago operates Grand Design RV operations based in Middlebury and Newmar Corporation in Napanee. The company says the steps are designed to lower the probability of coronavirus exposure to employees and to adjust future production output relative to a fast-changing market demand. Each of the businesses has suspended production through April 12th. Well, the pandemic and Governor Holcomb's stay-at-home order have put Indiana business really in uncharted waters. Many are in survival mode right now, looking for answers and some perspective on what might be next. No better person to provide some of that perspective than Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger, who rejoins us now from our social media lounge. Jim, good to see you again.
Thank you,
first of all, we want to talk about economic development, but back to the pandemic. As you look at the situation now, remind businesses, if you would, around the state of Indiana, some of the things they should really be keeping in mind as they go about their business or attempting to really keep things rolling.
Well, social distancing is obviously the main thing, and stay at home whenever you can, and only leave your homes for essential things. The executive order by the governor was not to shut down businesses. Contrary to that, it didn't include that at all. So essential businesses that can continue to conduct business are free to do so. I should mention the governor set up 3 groups as a part of his COVID-19 workforce committee, and one is in health, one is in safety, of course, and one's in economic development, which is our group. And Dr. Box heads up the health, as is Dr. Sullivan, and of course the Adjutant General and the State Police Superintendent Doug Carter head up the safety one, along with our Director of Homeland Security, Stephen Cox, and then I work with the OMB Director, Chris Johnson, and our Workforce Development Commissioner Fred Payne. So I think businesses should be confident that we are all joined, all forces are joined, all 132 agencies in state government are communicating through these different outlets. And I can tell you, Gary, with no fear of contradiction, having been a part of some teleconference meetings with the President and Vice President, everybody is joined on this and working together. And there'll be a lot of resources. There are a lot of resources out there for small and large businesses that they can take advantage of in this troubled time.
Jim, give us an idea of what the impact would be on economic development. You have been, you talk about a frequent flyer. I mean, you've been around the globe many times with a lot of success stories bringing business back to Indiana. Economic development has really been on a roll these last few years. What will the pandemic do? Will it slow the rate of getting deals done? What do you see as the impact?
I think it's just a slight slowdown. One of the things I've spent most of my days doing, in addition to having these what we call concierge coordination meetings with businesses all around the state of Indiana, I've been reaching out and calling customers and businesses all around the world every single day. So I'm like 24/7 because I just called by their time zone. But I'm reaching out to the people we've worked with overseas. We've had record years of foreign direct investment, and we continue to see those being strong. We think a lot of this, when we get to the other end of this, it'll be stronger than ever. So we don't really see an impact long term. We've not had one project that we've been told has been canceled from all of our foreign direct investors. Everything's just been put on hold, similar to travel and all the different things that we have to comply with. But we feel very confident, and I think we're very lucky to have the governor's leadership right now in this time, a governor that takes credit for nothing and responsibility responsibility for everything. He's working very, very hard with all of our groups. We're talking on an hourly basis. And I think businesses around Indiana should feel good that their best interest is being looked at.
Jim, you mentioned in the first half hour, you even were able to close a deal, an economic development deal this week.
Yeah, and again, it's because of, businesses have a longer term time cycle. We're a global economy, and in businesses, it's just like in the stock market, you're an investor, you're a speculator. Investors, you've got to just go with the flow, and I think businesses are more in that investment category, where they've invested, they have long screens, they're going to see things through, and I think right now, most of our focus has been on our small businesses, and we have 512,000 small businesses in Indiana that employ 1.2 million people in our state. So I think the governor was instrumental on March 17th when he reached out to the Small Business Association and he asked them to issue an injury disaster loan declaration, which was then approved on the 18th. So our small businesses around Indiana can apply for up to $2 million in a small business loan to help them bridge this gap. As a part of this current stimulus package that's being talked about as we speak, there's a section in there, Keeping Workers Paid Employment Act, that will allow people to take loans out from the federal government, from the Small Business Administration, that they will not have to pay back as long as they're using that money to keep their workers employed and retain their employees. So any program we can possibly look at, we are, including the income tax deferral till back on July 15th, as well as property taxes, having a 60-day period where they would not be penalized. So every single thing that we can do and think of that helps our Hoosiers businesses out, the governor's asked us to employ.
Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger. Jim, coming to us from the Social Media Lounge. Really appreciate you taking the time to stop in and give us an update. We look forward to talking to you very soon.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. Well, still ahead, Indiana businesses stepping up in a big way to fight the spread of COVID-19. That includes Eli Lilly and Company, which began testing healthcare workers and first responders. Lilly's chief scientific officer tells us how the company is keeping up with demand. The crisis has changed the way we live, work, and do business in a big way as well. Thousands of Hoosiers are now out of work or very anxious that they might be losing their jobs. Throughout the show, we will continue to share COVID-19 resources like this one from the Indiana Small Business Development Center. For the complete list of resources, go to our website, InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Well, the coronavirus is causing a huge ripple effect among Indiana nonprofits as well. Organizations that provide human service needs like access to food and shelter are facing challenges of how they're going to weather this crisis. Some of Central Indiana's biggest community funders, Lilly Endowment, United Way of Central Indiana, Fairbanks Foundation, Central Indiana Community Foundation, many others are answering the call to help in a big way. A few weeks ago, they launched the Central Indiana COVID-19 Economic Relief Fund to support organizations. And this week, the coalition made unrestricted grants to some 46 organizations. United Way of Central Indiana President and CEO Ann Mertlow joins us now from her home via Skype to share some details. Ann, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, before we get to the fund, which is an amazing development here, talk about the impact that this crisis is having. It's certainly impacting really all segments of the Indiana economy, but nonprofits, I know, are especially being hit. Talk about the situation, if you would.
Well, just like any business, the way nonprofits conduct their outreach to the community is being drastically affected. Nonprofits touch the people that they serve every day, usually by bringing them in. And just like hospitals are finding ways to do drive-through testing, and businesses are finding ways to work remotely, nonprofits are having to find drastically new ways to provide services to those in need. And so it is shaking up everything that they do, and they are having to find very new ways to collaborate and to serve those in need. I'll give you one example. For example, if you're serving seniors now, you're not bringing them in to serve them inside your community center. You're finding ways to go to them to find out if they need prescriptions or need food.
Wow, yeah, and once again, United Way is answering the call in a big way. The COVID-19 Community Economic Relief Fund was launched. Lilly Endowment with a $15 million gift, Central Indiana Corporate Fund, Community Foundation, I should say, Eli Lilly and Company Foundation, Fairbanks, among those United Way will administer. Talk about this fund, and you've already got money on the street, right?
We do. So it's an $18 million fund now. It's open to the public, and we have gotten $7.3 million already out the door to 46 organizations that are serving our community so that they can continue to serve in this environment. We know that people are already in need. We know that there are really some very big emerging needs that needed to be taken care of very quickly with these organizations that are on the front line of serving folks that are not only really worried about what's going to happen next, but have some very serious needs that have to be taken care of so that they can take care of us. So an example would be childcare for healthcare workers and emergency responders.
Yep.
So this first and foremost is a health crisis, right? And if healthcare workers like doctors and nurses don't have a place to take their children, then they can't be in hospitals taking care of us.
Yep.
If those first responders, our firefighters and our police workers and our ambulance drivers can't be out there taking those calls, then they can't be taking care of us. And with childcare shut down, that is a serious problem for society. So that was one of the first needs we had to take care of, and it was addressed in this first round of funding.
All right, big round of funding. More to come on that. I should mention from those initial founding funders, the Pulliam Foundation involved as well, in addition to those other organizations. Ann Bertlos, the CEO of United Way of Central Indiana. Ann, thanks for all you do. Thanks for United Way does what they do as well in so many ways. We look forward to following up with you on this story. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Stay well.
All right, you too. Well, Indiana's business giants are not only answering the call to help nonprofits, they're also on the front lines of testing for COVID-19.
Simply trying to step up and fill an unmet medical need. We'll continue to do that in as many different ways as we can. This is a national crisis. This is a crisis for the state of Indiana and a crisis for the city of Indianapolis. I think every citizen, every company needs to do everything they can to help fight COVID-19.
That is Eli Lilly and Company Chief Scientific Officer Dan Skowronski speaking about the unified approach Hoosier businesses and the community are taking to fight the spread of coronavirus. Now, Lilly and Roche Diagnostics, among dozens of Hoosier companies stepping up in a big way to do their part to flatten the curve. Roche was one of the first in the world to send coronavirus test kits to laboratories all over the U.S. This week, Lilly started its drive-through drug testing for healthcare workers, and after the first day, expanded that to first responders. Inside Indiana Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta joins us now via Skype from Greenwood to tell us how Lilly is keeping up with demand, the company's efforts to find an antibody therapy, and supplies they say are needed. Kylie.
Well, thank you, Gary. As we reported last week, Lilly launched a partnership with the Indiana State Department of Health to repurpose a Lilly research facility for COVID-19 testing. They also indicated that they were working on drive-through testing for healthcare workers, and this week they got that program off the ground. Not only that, first responders in Indianapolis are now able to receive the test. Lilly says this new group eligible for testing includes public safety, fire, and ambulance personnel. Testing will be determined and directed by the occupational health provider for each individual agency. Lilly Chief Scientific Officer Daniel Skowronski says so far the company is keeping up with demand.
We have been able to meet the demand so far. We have call-in numbers set up, and we schedule appointments generally in the same day that people call in. And when they get here, it flows pretty quickly, probably around 20 minutes from start to finish. The capacity that we have can still expand if needed, and so far we're not turning people back. Of course, our goal is to help patients, and the best way we can do that is by helping the people that take care of patients and the people that keep us all safe as first responders. But our other goal, which is, I think, even just critically important, our other goal that is critically important, is to stop the spread of COVID-19 in the community. There is still community spread. We need people to stay at home, to isolate themselves from one another, and we need to identify the people who have COVID-19 so they can take extra precautions so as not to spread it to their family or to any contacts that they might have outside their household. So that's our goal. I think that's how we can have the biggest impact on the city. We're working hard to do that.
Skowronski also says Lilly is making progress with Canadian-based biotech company AbCellera in trying to find an antibody therapy to treat the coronavirus. If it's successful, the company says will work with global regulators to bring a treatment to patients.
That project is a very important project to us to try and create from really a patient who recovered from COVID-19 to isolate their antibodies that they naturally make to fight off the virus, and then turn those antibodies into a drug that can be administered to thousands and thousands of other people who need it. That project is progressing quickly. We have teams at AbCellera, at Eli Lilly, at all of our sites, and also at the NIH, literally working night and day to advance that project, and continues to move at a very, very accelerated pace. Our target is to be able to test these mass-produced antibodies in patients within the next 4 months.
Skowronski also says there is a need for other supplies like testing equipment and something as simple as swabs. He also addressed how the crisis has challenged companies like Lilly to meet demand for testing now and in the future.
There are other things that are just in critical supply in the country. We hope to be able to obtain additional supplies so we can continue to test patients. These are simple things like safety equipment for the people doing the testing, masks, as well as even the swabs, the nasopharyngeal swabs that are used to sample the patient. These are in short supply nationally. Unfortunately, the coronavirus caught this country unprepared. Despite adequate warning, we were unprepared with the supplies we needed. So you're seeing companies now step into the breach and try and scramble back into a more appropriate posture to fight this virus.
And Gary, the drive-through currently is not available to the public, but Skowronski says that is something that could be coming down the road. Back to you.
All right, Kylie, thanks. Great report coming to us from Greenwood via Skype. Well, the Kroger company says it has found a way to reward its hardworking employees. Kroger will provide a one-time bonus to employees and a new emergency leave policy as well. The bonus plan is for every hourly frontline grocery, supply chain, manufacturing, and customer service worker. Each full-time associate will receive $300 and $150 for part-time workers. The Cincinnati-based grocer also announcing an expanded COVID-19 emergency leave plan, which includes paid time off to allow employees to self-isolate or seek medical care. The new guidelines would allow all associates to be eligible to receive standard pay for up to 2 weeks. Coming up, isolation and separation have been especially hard on teachers who miss seeing their students. So these Central Indiana educators literally took to the streets, all in the name of reconnecting with students. We'll have that story when we come back. Well, COVID-19 has produced some interesting and inspiring acts of kindness as we all navigate through these unprecedented times. Our partners at Wish TV found a particularly poignant event in Noblesville, where dozens of teachers literally hit the streets to visit the students they haven't seen in weeks. Sierra Hignight takes us now to Hamilton County for a special Teachers Parade.
Teachers from North Elementary School drove to all of the neighborhoods for their school, just like this one, to see some of their students who they haven't seen in a week now, to give them a special message. With 24 hours notice, teachers and staff members made signs and paraded through neighborhoods to see their students after a week of e-learning.
Good to see you. Bye, guys. Stay healthy.
It looks like about all of our teachers and some assistants and some maintenance. Pretty much the whole staff wanted to come out and support our kids being locked in and just let them know that we're thinking about them and we want the best for them.
Students are now uttering a sentence that parents never thought they would hear, that they miss school.
Well, it's kind of hard because you don't have your teacher to help you, and you only have your parents to help you.
I hope that it lifts their spirits. I know it's been tremendous for us. Just knowing that we had this to look forward to in the next 24 hours was amazing.
Teachers have had a tough week after being forced to make the quick transition to online learning.
Teachers working all hours, 16 hours a day. It's not a vacation for sure.
But they have still found time to make sure their kids were all right.
The teachers have gone way above and beyond. We have teachers doing goodnight chats, pajama parties, good mornings.
For students, seeing their teachers in person was just what they needed to bring out a smile.
I miss my teacher, and I can't wait to see her again. And then I just saw her, so now I'm super happy. We miss you.
And for teachers, seeing those smiling faces makes all the hard work worth it, with the uncertainty of when they'll actually be able to return to the classroom.
Even if it's from a distance, it means a lot.
Reporting, I'm Sierra Hignite for Inside Indiana Business.
Well, we're all seeing and feeling the effects of COVID-19, yet for all of the uncertainty and the fear gripping our state, there are lots of positive signs. Tireless efforts of health professionals, first responders, companies large and small stepping up, state and local governments engaging as well. I've covered Indiana business for nearly 40 years. What we're navigating is uncharted territory, and the stakes have really never been this high for our families, neighbors, and the economy. We will get to the other side of this, and we'll all get there together. Thank you for your support. And thanks for all you do to grow Indiana.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.